Hi, and thank you for watching TargetedWest.com's Sunday show. I'm DJ Chris, your host. Today is the 8th of October, 2023. I'm here in beautiful Lodi, California. It's a bit warm, so we have to run the air conditioner. And we're here to interview someone for Show 81. We're a peaceful group. We're nonviolent or spew any violence or talk at all about it. We're peaceful people who want to talk about fourth industrial technologies and directed energy weapons, cause stalking, and such. If you're watching me on YouTube, I appreciate if you can like, subscribe, and make a comment. And thank you for watching me or listening to me on Spotify. Here we go. We have Liliana today, a communications worker from the UN, who's retired now and is a target individual. Hello, Liliana. How are you today?
I'm doing well, thank you. Although I have been under attack in the last few days, and my body is full of blisters from microwave burns, but I'm seeing the neurologist tomorrow and my dermatologist on Tuesday, and I already saw my primary care doctor on Thursday. The blisters all over, So.
Oh my God, that's terrible. And you said you started getting targeted around 2003 with the drones hitting you with directed energy weapons. You mentioned before we started the interview that you were sure that it wasn't the UN that was doing this. It was a different entity, a local entity. Could you expand on that a little bit?
Yes, I believe, like many TIs believe, and actually the anonymous video of September the 7th indicated that under Homeland Security after 9/11, they set up about 99 intelligence fusion centers all over the United States to perform covert operations. And Anonymous says in the video that they have been performing secret human experimentation, which is the programs that we are subjected to for all of these years.
Yeah, and the fusion centers were open when you were attacked in 2003.
Yes, actually, the memorandum of understanding that officially opened the operation of this fusion center locally in my county, that is located less than 2 miles away from me. The microwave tower that they use is only 1 mile away from me, and they started in about the spring of 2004 officially with a memorandum of understanding. But a year before that, like they do with all these operations, they were already using these weapons and testing them, and before they had the official meeting with the memorandum of understanding.
Gotcha. So you were a UN employee for 25 years. Can you tell us about that experience?
Well, yeah, I had interesting job assignments. In all of my assignments were in the Department of Public Information. So I began with informing the public and the press and academics directly, and writing drafting replies to letters sent to the Secretary General from all over the world. At that time, it was Secretary General Javier Pérez Cuellar, and I would send my drafts to his office, and they never had any change to make in my drafts. I had done some training on the type of letters, official letters, that are usually sent from the UN. So I guess I learned how to do it, studying the way that official letters are written, and I was always, accepted with all of my drafts for the signature of the Secretary General. And after that, I worked in a number of programs, including the Communications and Project Management Division, and there the programs were for big like conferences, like for instance the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development, the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, in 1992, and my boss, the director of the division, asked me to go to the conference because my mother tongue is Spanish, but I also speak Portuguese fluently. So he thought that he needed somebody to communicate with the authorities there for the setup of the conference, and I was able to resolve a number of logistics that had to do with in that year all the laptops of the international press had to be wired, and they had to pass the wires below the tile floors. So they had to lift the tile floors in the press room to put all the wiring. So I helped my boss with these kind of logistics, and also to set up the press briefings and press conferences that the different speakers wanted, to present, and I did the summaries for those briefings and conferences, and in English and in Spanish, and I sent them then via email to all the United Nations information centers around the world. And before that, 2 years before that, my boss asked me to go as his professional assistant to California, because the state of California had asked the United Nations for a complete program to prepare the state of California for the conference, the Earth Summit, that was going to take place in Rio de Janeiro 2 years later. So the program was very complete, and we had sessions with the local government in Los Angeles and San Francisco. We also had meetings in the local universities, UCLA and USC, and to inform the attendees there. We had programs with the non-governmental organizations for the environment in California. They were like California Relief was one of them, I remember. And we also had press conferences and briefings with the newspapers, the Los Angeles Times and the Sacramento Bee, and then we also had a ceremony for the anniversary of the signing of the charter in San Francisco. It was signed in San Francisco at the Herbst Theater. So that happened with those projects, and then the next project that I had was a very important one also. I assisted a director from the Office of the Secretary General who was putting together the oral history of the United Nations. So I assisted him with the production and scheduling of the interviews that had to be conducted with important politicians and people who had significant trajectory in the world, and to have their testimonies about important events before these people passed away, so that it had to be recorded, and then all of the recordings were deposited for all the world in the Hammarskjöld Library of the United Nations, so that any researcher can go there and listen to very well-known politicians who may have already passed away to talk about the incidents that happen, wars or political incidents that happened in the past. Because of that project, I was awarded a permanent contract by the United Nations for outstanding service to the organization. And after that, I worked as a translator and editor for the editorial section of the department with United Nations publications, and also editing in English, French, and Spanish for the publications. And then after that, I was in a section that dealt with international conferences and that were scheduled around the world. And during that period, my husband got very ill, and I had to ask for a leave of absence without pay that was approved, because my husband had also been a director who came to the United Nations as a candidate for one of the most important positions, and as director, and bringing public information and communications to the department. And so people knew him, and they admired him. They were sad that he was terminally ill, and they approved my leave of absence without pay. And we came to California because his oncologist in New York said that it was too advanced, the cancer, and there was not much that he could do. But he said...
what hospital? Was it Stanford, perhaps?
No. We went actually to clinics that in San Diego and northern Mexico, or northern Tijuana area, because they were able to use treatments that were approved in Europe but not in the United States. Like, my husband had terminal prostate cancer, and what was shown to have results is hormonal treatment. And the United States did not approve for hormonal treatment. So the clinics in San Diego that had like hospitals in the Tijuana area, like American Biologics or All American Hospitals, very well organized, everything, very great hospitals, and a lot of people were coming for treatment there from the United States, Canada, and Mexico, because they offered advanced medical treatment that the United States was not approving at the moment, but Europe, yes, was conducting those treatments.
very good. So, um, you discussed with me about the fact that their insurance at the UN was cut off.
Well,
Even if you prepaid, they wouldn't pay.
Well, what happened is that the length of his stay had been prolonged because he was very ill. However, he was improving. When we arrived, he was like bedridden and for a couple of months, and straight out of the airplane, he had to be taken on a stretcher, to the hospital, and then after that, the hormonal treatment started improving his condition. So from being, like bedridden, he was able to be on a wheelchair for like 2 or 3 months, and then after that, the treatment continued improving, and he passed to a walker, holding a walker to walk, and that was for another like 3 months, and then he continued improving, and he was able to use a cane to walk, So the improvement was visible, and it was lengthy because when you have terminal cancer and you try to reverse the illness, we were there for a long time. And although I was in touch with my office and they told me not to worry, that everything was okay, and the Office of Finance told me also, don't worry because, if you need to pay up front for the treatments, because we had to put a double mortgage on our home to pay for these treatments, she said, the head of finance, I will leave you in the system no matter what, under A for active and not T for terminated, until you come back. We're going to return around January of the following year of '99. But someone, without consulting her, who was from the medical insurance unit, and without notice, without reaching me when I was calling frequently my office from San Diego, this person took him out of the active status. He put terminated, and the reason was that I guess these treatments, the insurance company that we had an insurance with, that was Aetna, a very expensive insurance that covered all hospitals and all doctors and all treatments all over the world. So it was a very expensive insurance plan. But they thought that, with a number of months like that it was costly, the treatment, and that's why, without calling us or telling us or anything or consulting us, we were all of a sudden dropped, when I had an agreement that I wouldn't be dropped until I returned with my husband in January. So that was a complete shock, because then I was not able to get the pain medication that my husband needed in the pharmacies of San Diego.
Were you able to try cannabis for him? Or no, it wasn't legal yet. It wasn't even 96 is when it became legal in California.
Well, I did not know about that, but the doctors were giving him morphine drops and morphine tablets, that is pain management, that had to be spread throughout the day so that he wouldn't have a lot of pain, because the cancer had, from the prostate, had invaded his bones, and that is a painful situation. So he needed daily the pain medication. So I went to pick it up, and all of a sudden the pharmacy told me, "Oh, your insurance card is not working. Something happened. Do you have insurance or don't you have insurance?" So I was, uh, like in disbelief. But I called, and then I found out that we had been dropped without notice. So then I told my husband we have to go to New York and get this situation rectified. So although he was still in the middle of treatment, this was in end of September of 1998, and we were going to return in January of 99. I had to interrupt his treatment because we didn't have a chance to get his medication and continue the treatments, So I had to travel with him to New York, and I immediately went to the medical insurance office, and the guy was very hostile. He, the head of the medical insurance, and he said, "Well, we're going to have a meeting, and we're going to decide whether to reinstate him or not." And I told him, my husband is very, very ill with terminal cancer. I cannot leave him without medical treatment. So you have to consider that, So anyway, they were taking a long time to schedule a meeting. So about 20 days later, I told them, well, I have to take my husband to continue his treatments, and we'll try to pay out of pocket for everything, for the medication, for everything that he needs, because he needs to continue with these treatments. So you let me know, then and I'll call you from there to let me know if you have reinstated him. So when I called, after the meeting was supposed to be held, he informed me that they had decided not to reinstate us, my husband and I, for the medical treatments. I wasn't getting any medical treatment. All the medical treatments were for my husband's terminal cancer. And a year after that, in about January of 2000, and my husband died 2 months after that because of lack of proper resources.
I'm sorry to hear that. It's terrible.
Yeah. A year after that, President Clinton passed a bill, a law, prohibiting insurance companies to suspend treatments of terminally ill cancer patients without notice for whatever reason. If they have a discrepancy about the premiums or whatever, they should not do that with terminally ill people who can die as a result of not getting treatment. So he passed that bill, that law, but it was a year after my husband died that this happened.
That's terrible.
So anyway, it was terrible. I had to return to New York with his remains on the plane, and for his funeral and burial. But I had enormous trouble after I returned to get reimbursed for the cancer, for the insurance coverage. Before we had been dropped, we were legally insured, and there was quite a bit of amount of money that we had paid from our mortgage, and about $100,000 for all the treatments, and they refused to reimburse me. Although before they dropped me, I and my husband were legally insured, So and then because they didn't want to reimburse me for the medical, then they blocked me from trying to get back to my job, although I had earned through merit this permanent contract that gave me job security until retirement. It was
I read that. Yeah, that's amazing that they went against that. Is that uncommon?
Well, in those years, the administration of justice by the organization was not wonderful for a lot of cases, different cases of people, and because they're in international territory, we could not sue them, for anything that was inappropriate or an abuse, and they had an internal process of appeals that you would pass from one panel after like a year in one panel to the panel above, escalating all the way to the administrative tribunal. But because it's a lengthy process and a very draining process, and you cannot bring attorneys from the outside, but you had to work with the staff members who were able to volunteer for the staff. And I knew the head of the administrative tribunal because she and I had gone to the same school in Argentina where I was born and I grew up. And she showed me a number of files that she had piled up in her office, going all around her office. And she said to me that it could take you 10 to 20 years, to get a decision from the tribunal before it reaches here, the tribunal, passing through the different panels. So she said, I wouldn't recommend you to go through all of that, but I would advise you to try to negotiate with them, peaceful negotiations that the UN is famous for, peaceful negotiations, to try and get the situation corrected, rectified, and whatever, to try and get my job back. Because I was
so were you finally able to get it rectified and get the bills paid? Because we're going to switch next to the directed energy weapons section of your story.
Yeah, well, it took many years for that to be rectified, although I had the Ombudsman's office, the staff committee, the staff union, a lot of people helping me write memos and letters, but they were not responding properly. And only when my age of retirement came, then they started resolving things, because they were really interested in my contract, my permanent contract that was very valuable, that they, like not too many people have, and then after I leave, they could give it to someone that they decided that was deserved to have it. So not too many people are given those contracts due to merit. So then anyway, so it took me years to get to that point.
9/11 happened. The fusion centers opened. And all of a sudden, you're getting a drone above your head in your house doing directed energy weapons and zapping you. You told me you've got blisters now, and you're seeking care. So tell us about that, how you're being targeted for the audience.
Well, it started in December of 2003, and all of a sudden, I was going down the stairs in my home, and I saw a red light going through my body from right to left, from the top of the stairs, and then I was still going down the stairs, and the red light crossed my body again from right to left. So I had no idea what that was. Years later, I realized that it was radar, to try to locate my body, to start identifying my body for attack. So that night, I went to bed, and a crazy drone uh, with a noisy combat mode, like diving over my home. And I live in an area that is in the woods. That drone was assaulting me all over the body, burning me all over the body, and I didn't know what it was, but I thought from the way I felt that a crazy guy in a plane had lasers on his plane, and he was attacking me with lasers. That's what it felt like for me. So the following morning, I go to the police station, and I show them the burns, and I tell them about it. And the police told me that they wouldn't have a way to identify who was doing that, but they showed me on a little laptop that if I'm a victim of attacks like that, I could find shielding for my home, and they showed me several companies that did the soundproofing and also the shielding from electromagnetic waves and or weapons to a home. But it was a very expensive proposition to do that, and then to begin putting my home as a fortress, with to isolate me from the outside. I still wanted to understand what that was. And 6 months later,
they could have also been humoring you too.
Probably. Although they were my local police, and they were not the intelligence center that was responsible for the attacks, but with their memorandum of understanding, they had all of the police departments of the county supporting their covert experiments and activities, and that they had to keep quiet, about what they were doing. So 6 months later, another police report, two police officers came to my home. I think that the two of them were sergeants. And one of them, who looked at my burns on my arms, etc., he said, I believe that you're being used for a federal program of human experimentation. I said, what? And he said, yeah, this looks like a psychotronic weapons program. And I said, I don't know what psychotronic weapons are. He asked me to Google it. And he advised me, like, if I had a basement in my home, to try and stay inside of the basement. But my basement is not below the ground, it's above ground. He also said maybe inside of your car, if you have a metal car, you can protect yourself like that. But it was ongoing assaults. And my primary care doctor started noticing all the burns on my body. And 2 years later, he wrote a letter saying that he had observed bruises all over my body that appeared like burns, but it couldn't be bruises of her falling down, because some of the bruises were appearing on the inside of her limbs, of her legs and arms. And usually when people fall down, they fall with the outside of their limbs. So he noticed this is an external attack, and he said he didn't put it there, but he told me, I think this is radiation. And so psychotronic weapons, I looked it up, and I realized what this was, like what this program is about, And these attacks have continued day and night for the last 20 years. terrible attack.
Absolutely amazing. So do you still get the drones and you're just telling me you're getting blisters. Are you still getting
Yeah,
all this attacks still currently?
yeah. They're using mostly now, for the last few years, the beam forming from the local microwave tower that is only a mile away from here. And not only that, I have a security cameras with infrared, and the infrared both at night and during the day were able to visualize the beams of microwave radiation entering my home in the back and in the front of my home. And at the end of 2021, my dermatologist, when I had enormous red burns of radiation in my body, she took biopsies and was able to take the biopsies 24 hours after the attacks happened. And she sent them to Columbia University that determined that in both cases, my upper body and my lower body, it was radiation. So
Wow.
when I had that report from Columbia University and certified by my dermatologist and also concurred by my primary care doctor, who had believed for the last 20 years that I was subjected to radiation, my primary care doctor wrote a letter saying that I am a fully competent person, and that I have been subjected to the effects of radiation for many years. And so when this report was produced, I was picking up correspondence from my post office and in post office box, and I get a call from the chief of the fusion center while I'm there. And I guess because I had that report from Columbia University, he kind of suggested that we could open a case and start trying to find a way of ending with this issue, putting an end to it. I was very surprised, but I was welcoming the initiative. He advised me to go to my local police department to open a case with a detective and then bring it to the Fusion Intelligence Center to see him. He was the chief. And I said to him, but before we start these negotiations, I need to ask you that the hostilities end, because we cannot be negotiating for an end of something like this if I still continue to be attacked, I told him. And he agreed with that. And I also told him I would need to go with an attorney to see the detective, because I don't want to be facing all of these negotiations alone. I had to go with someone who can witness and assist me in these negotiations. And so he agreed with that too. And I mentioned to him, I will do this process in 2 to 3 months with you, because the detective that I asked for in my police department had just retired. So I have to try to become familiarized with the detectives that are there that I can work with. And he accepted all that. And I said also, because I go once a year to visit my elderly mother in Argentina, and then I spend the 2 or 3 winter months there, and I returned. I return in April when I do my income tax preparation with my accountant. And he said that was fine, that we could continue then when I come back. So I came back, and the first thing I did, I called my police department to try and get a detective to work with me. I had already spoken on the phone with the police department when this initiative was started by the chief of the Intelligence Fusion Center. And the police department was in agreement. I had spoken with them because it was coming from the Intelligence Center. So I called the police department trying to identify a detective, and I was told by the dispatcher that the proposal to do this cannot go forward because the chief of the Fusion Center had just retired. So the person who was offering that I negotiate a way out of this had retired, but it was not, I believe it was not planned that he would retire. I believe that he was made to retire by those who were not in agreement with it.
How did the Fusion Center get wind of you? Have you written to them before, or do they know you through the police department? How did that work out?
Well, there were times when my local police department would forward my calls to them. Also, when a local sheriff that has under him 2 undersheriffs, and under the 2 undersheriffs is the position of the chief of the Fusion Intelligence Center in the county.
Gotcha.
When the sheriff was running for office for the county to replace our previous sheriff, there was another candidate that I felt that I was going to support, and I was volunteering to try to help promote the other candidate, and he was surprised that I would do that, and I attended some public meetings where he was making his presentation, and he asked me why I would do that, and I said because I had been victimized by the previous sheriff and the intelligence center for with microwave weapons for all of these years. And so if you take over, from being that you are the likely candidate from the sheriff's office to take this position, you would be continuing with business as usual. So then I wanted somebody else to be elected. So then he told me, no, don't think that way. If you're being targeted like this, I'll give you a phone number to reach the representative of your police department because they have rotating duties inside of the Fusion Center, the police department. So he gave me the name and the phone number of someone to call at the Fusion Center who was the representative of my police department, to let him know that I was suffering with this and to try and ask him to find a way to stop what was happening with me. So he was surprised that I called him, and he said, how did you get my number and my name? I said, well, the candidate for sheriff, that will probably be our next sheriff, he is trying to help me with this, I said. So he said to me, I'll look into this and I'll call you back. He never called me back, and when I tried to reach him again, he would never pick up the phone.
Incredible. We're going to switch to Q&A mode, so our questions mode now, so people can ask you about your experiences. So I'm going to switch right now. You may have to do *6 to unmute yourself, Liliana. Here we go.
Oh,
Okay, we're in open mic mode. And does anyone have a question for Liliana?
Hi, Lil. It's Bobby. Would you like to talk about how you presented to the United Nations on directed energy weapons? Because I know you had talked about that when we sat on the coalition together.
yes, Bobby. Yeah, what happened is that all of a sudden in 2019, we received reports that the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Torture, Nils Melzer, uh, inspired by the case of Julian Assange, who apparently was a victim of directed energy weapons attacks, he recognized the situation was uh, happening to a lot of victims all over the world. So he uh, asked for the input of victims of attacks from directed energy weapons and microwave radiation. And then the community started sending him our input. And then he was scheduled to present to the world that was on February 28, 2020, the fact that a new form of torture was identified that he would call cyber torture that use modern technologies and electromagnetic weapons, directed energy weapons, and microwave radiation to attack victims all over the world. And with our input, he was able to draft a comprehensive document to describe what cyber torture was and to introduce it to the world with his statement on February 28, 2020. The document was published on March the 20th, 2020, but it gave a very clear description of the attacks that targeted individuals are subjected to. He did not mention the word targeted individuals in the document, but everything that he described and documents from other third parties describing this were noted on the document, and then we got a recognition of this crime against humanity for the first time. And he continued asking us for our input, sending us questionnaires, asking us to give our personal reports of our stories to him. And this was happening about like 3 times a year in 2020 and 2021 until in early 2022, after having written a lot of important documents that are really helpful for us about these issues. He decided to take a position at the International Red Cross as their head of their international law department, because although in 2020 he had felt that this crime could be ending in 4 years all over the world, the governments did not respond to him, and he was like really upset that they would not do anything about this and not give him the support that he needed for the crime to end in many parts of the world. So he decided to take this other position. But when he left, he said he would try to be close to the community and try to help people with trying to make a reality that this crime ends all over the world. And we had, I had been a member of the European Coalition Against Cyber Torture. That was called, before the cyber torture documents were published, it was called the European Coalition Task Force. And the head of the coalition is Magnus Olsson, for many years a victim in Europe and a leader of the victims of these crimes in Europe. I had assisted him with his Facebook page for the coalition and to try and get documents published in the Facebook page, and also flyers that we had translated into many languages so that the victims around the world could distribute these flyers in front of important buildings in the countries where they lived, to make it known that they were all victims of this crime. And I realized that Magnus wanted to participate in the meeting of the Human Rights Council when we knew that Nelson Meltzer was going to introduce the crime of cyber torture to the world. But Magnus was not a non-governmental organization accredited by the United Nations. He was not a member of an NGO. So
okay, let's go ahead and get to the next question if we can. Sorry to interrupt you. Anybody else have a question for Liliana?
Liliana, you had a technical scan done. Would you discuss at all about what was found in your body and the frequencies of who it goes to?
2490. Yeah. I was scanned by the expert John Kingston in Salt Lake City, and he discovered a number of semiconductors that had been implanted in my body without my knowledge. And he also found two important radio frequencies with the scanning that he did. And we had the megahertz for these two radio frequencies. And there is a chart, a table, that when you check the values of these megahertz, you can find out who was assigned these radio frequencies by the National Telecommunications and Information Agency. National Telecommunications and Information Administration of the United States, that assign to public officials and offices of the government the use of these frequencies. And it was discovered that one of the frequencies is assigned to Homeland Security and local police that I had in my body, and the other frequency is assigned to the Army for military telemetry,
wow,
which
that's
means
very, very interesting.
Yeah, military telemetry is like surveillance. So to be put in a around-the-clock surveillance by the military and Homeland Security.
Okay, very good. I don't want to interrupt, but I need to get this passed. It's a TI book club time. Just to interrupt for a moment, Mind Wars is our current book. It's about brain science in the military in the 21st century by Jonathan D. Moreno, and it was recommended by Dr. John Hall, That's for the TI Book Club. We're going to keep recording for another 5 minutes. So, Liliana, you can continue.
Okay.
Anyone else have a question for Liliana?
I do. My name is Nicole. She mentioned about some burn marks on her. And the reason I'm asking is because my mother's 75, and every now and then I'll sleep in her house, which is not good because they targeting her as well. And she's showing up with bruises on her. And I'm feeling like this is part of the attack, and you just kind of cleared my mind with that, being you said you had bruises on you, but it was internal. So I guess your skin is fragile. So when the blood, you know what I mean, when you get hurt, it actually shows on the outside. And that's what's going on with my mother as we speak. So I feel like she's shrinking, if that makes sense to you. Like in the last month, she's lost a lot of weight. And talking to her, at first I'm crazy, schizophrenic. I belong in, you know, I'm a circus by myself when I talk about what's going on in my existence. And trying to get her to understand me, we're on two different pages. Well, she's just realizing I'm different, like different. And so she's understanding I've got video footage to cover my facts. So she's really believing me now. But the problem is now I feel she's being burned like myself, but it's leaving bruises on her. She's 75.
Right. Well, I began to be bruised from the first attack, and at that attack I was like 51 years old. So you can be burned depending on the proximity of the cell tower or the proximity of the drones and aircraft to you. If you get a direct attack like that, you can be bruised no matter your age.
I have direct attacks from people. They're actually people that dress in black and carry lasers around, red, blue, green, but the green only comes on top of my camper where I sleep. But the red and the blue come to my wherever they have a bug at in my home. I guess they're watching me, but I've got multiple burns on myself. So that's actually viewable or seeable. And my next question is, where's the doctor that don't put you in the crazy house? The first police I called, I went to the crazy house.
All right, that happens a lot. We need to play a quick little commercial here for my associate TI Events, and we will continue this conversation with both of you. So hang on for just a moment, please.
Are you a targeted individual looking for support and connection? Look no further than TIEvents.org, the ultimate event site for targeted individuals worldwide. Discover a wide range of upcoming events from conferences and meetups to rallies and fundraisers. Connect with like-minded individuals, participate in informative conference calls, and explore a wealth of resources. Visit TIEvents.org today and join a thriving community of targeted individuals. Together, we can make a difference. TIEvents.org, empowering targeted individuals worldwide.
Thank you for listening to that. We're going to go ahead and do a quick shout out to Spotify. If you're listening to this on Spotify, please make a comment and like. If you're watching us on your favorite platforms, BitChute, YouTube, or archive.org, or Twitter or Facebook, you can click like. Please subscribe and make a comment in the comment section. We have 1 more minute left. Thank you, Liliana. Let me get a drink.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liliana, for the great interview. We'll have this posted up by tomorrow morning. I appreciate everybody's questions for her. We can keep going after the recording is over with. That way, if you're not comfortable with being recorded, we can wait till afterwards. So anyway, thank you again, Liliana. And we'll be shutting this recording off in just a moment. And that should be less than 10 seconds. And I appreciate you. It was a very good interview. It went really well. And it's now 7 o'clock. We'll turn the recording off.